The Varathian embassy gleamed like a crystalline monument under the twin suns of Kepler-4, for to be inside its translucent walls. Ambassador Hazel Chen adjusted her diplomatic sash and tried to ignore the nervous flutter in her stomach. She'd faced down warlords, negotiated trade agreements worth trillions, but nothing had prepared her for this particular request. "You want me to what?" she asked, certain she'd misheard. Commander Keitha of the Varathian Imperial Guard stood before her, his iridescent scales shifting from deep violet to embarrassed pink. The 7-foot reptilian warrior, feared across 6 star systems, looked like he wanted the floor to swallow him whole. "Pretend to be my mate," he repeated, his translator chip rendering his hissing speech into apologetic English. "For one day, my clutch mother arrives tomorrow for the bonding inspection. If I don't present a mate, she will arrange one." Hazel had spent 3 years on this colony world, building bridges between humanity and the dozen alien species who'd settled here after the Great Expansion. She'd learned their customs, respected their traditions, even participated in festivals that left her exhausted for days. "But this, Keitha, I'm honored, but I will owe you a life debt," he interrupted, desperation creeping into his voice. "Name anything within my power." She studied him. In the time she'd known him, Keitha had been nothing but honorable. He'd defended human colonists during the plasma storm of '87, carried injured children through toxic rain, and once spent 14 hours talking down a diplomatic crisis because he believed in peaceful coexistence. One day, Hazel said finally, "But you owe me dinner at that impossible 2-book restaurant in the Sky District." His scales flushed brilliant gold Varathian gratitude. Done. The next day arrived too quickly. Hazel found herself dressed in traditional Varathian courting colors, deep crimsons and golds that actually complemented her dark skin and black hair. Keitha had sent servants to help her prepare, and they'd woven her hair with temperature-sensitive crystals that glowed softly. "You look adequate," Keitha said when she arrived, then immediately caught himself. "I mean, by human standards, you look quite that as the crystals suit you." Despite her nervousness, Hazel laughed. "Smooth. Commander, your mother's going to see right through us." "Then we must be convincing," he said, offering his arm. His scales felt cool and smooth under her fingers, like river stones warmed by sun. Matriarch Varisha proved to be even more intimidating than her reputation suggested. She was massive, nearly 9 feet tall, with scales that had darkened to obsidian with age and eyes that missed nothing. She circled Hazel like a predator assessing prey. "A human," she finally said, her voice like grinding glaziers. "Unusual, Mother," I explained. "You explained nothing in your messages, Keith, only that you'd found a mate." She leaned closer to Hazel, her forked tongue flickering out to taste the air. "Tell me, little human, what draws you to my son?" Hazel's diplomatic training kicked in, but something made her speak from the heart instead. "His honor," she said simply. "He could have let those children die during the storm. It would have been safer, but he didn't hesitate. He just ran into the acid rain like it was nothing." She wasn't pretending anymore, she realized with a start. These were things she'd actually admired about Keitha for months. "And his terrible jokes," she added, earning a surprised bark of laughter from the matriarch. The day blurred into a series of trials. Hazel had to demonstrate knowledge of Varathian customs. Thankfully, her diplomatic training covered that. She had to prepare a traditional meal less successful, but Keitha subtly helped when his mother wasn't looking, and she had to participate in the ritual of shared memory, a telepathic exercise where bonded pairs synchronized their thoughts. That last part should have been impossible. Humans weren't telepathic, but the Varathians had adapted their ritual for interspecies bonds, using a harmonic crystal that bridged neural patterns. When Hazel touched the crystal alongside Keitha, the world exploded into sensation. She felt his nervousness, his guilt at involving her in this deception, but also warmth, affection, the memory of every time he'd watched her negotiate peace between warring factions, admiration for her courage, respect for her principles, and underneath it all, something deeper, something he'd been hiding even from himself. He felt her memories too, the loneliness of being humanity's representative on an alien world, the exhaustion of always being on, the quiet moments when she'd watched him train with his warriors and felt safe seeing the growing attraction she'd been denying for months. When they broke contact, both were breathing hard. Varisha watched them with ancient, knowing eyes. "Interesting," she said. "Very interesting." That evening, After Varisha had retired to her chambers, Keitha found Hazel on the observation deck, staring out at the alien stars. "Your mother knows," Hazel said without turning round. "Yes." He moved to stand beside her, careful to maintain a respectful distance. "I'm sorry. The crystal revealed more than I intended." "Did it reveal the truth, or create it?" Hazel asked softly. Keitha was silent for a long moment. "I don't know," he finally admitted. "I know that 3 months ago, I would have called this impossible. Humans and Varathians don't. We're too different, but somewhere between your terrible attempts at speaking my language and the way you stood up to the Chronok trade delegation, I started craving something you thought you couldn't have." Hazel finished. "Yes." She turned to face him then, searching his alien features for the person she'd come to know. "The day's over," she said. "Your mother's satisfied. We don't have to pretend anymore." "No," Keitha agreed, his scales shifting through a dozen colors: hope, fear, longing. "We don't have to pretend." Hazel reached out, placing her small hand against his chest, feeling the dual rhythm of his hearts. "So what happens now?" Keitha covered her hand with his own, his claws gentle against her skin. Now I ask if you'd like to make this pretense a reality. No life debts, no obligations, just us." "Your mother's still going to be impossible," Hazel warned. "She already likes you more than any Varathian match," she suggested. "Fair point." Hazel smiled up at him. "And you still owe me that dinner." "I do," he agreed, his scales flashing brilliant gold. "Though I should warn you, I've been craving your company for far longer than one day." "Good," Hazel said, rising on her toes as he bent down to meet her. "Because I'm not pretending anymore either." Their kiss was clumsy, different biologies, different instincts, but it was real. And in the end, that was all that mattered. Humanity had reached the stars, not because they were the strongest or the most advanced, but because they could find connection anywhere, with anyone, even a nervous Varathian commander, who just needed someone to pretend for one day, though neither of them was pretending any longer.